Welcome to the Raise Podcast. I'm Coral.
And I'm Natalie.
And we're here to help you raise your game whilst raising the next generation.
We want to help put the power in your hands and inspire you to live your life the way you choose. Ready to raise some questions?
Well, so are we.
Hello, everybody. So on today's episode of the Raise podcast, we have Adrienne Adhami, also known as Adrienne London, who is a prominent wellness expert, motivational speaker, and author. She gained recognition through her successful podcast Power Hour and the best-selling book of the same name. Her work emphasizes reclaiming personal time, advocating for dedicating an hour each day to self-care. And her latest book, Decisions That Matter: How to Make Decisions in a World of Endless Choice, addresses the challenges of decision-making in today's fast-paced world. The book offers strategies and frameworks to help readers make intentional decisions, overcome procrastination, and align their choices with their values and goals.
Adrienne, thank you so much for joining us today. We'd love to know a bit more about your journey and what led you into decision making.
Gosh, well, it's a long journey. As you can imagine, as so many of us, we have these multifaceted careers now, multifaceted lives. And I guess through this process, I've realized actually when people ask me about my journey, you realize how many kind of different stages and things you go through. So I guess I'll go from, being a young girl leaving home. So I left home at the age of 16, which I didn't necessarily think was such a huge decision until this book came out and people kind of went, "You left home at 16?
Yeah, that's young.
Yeah. And I guess now as a parent of a young person, I'm like, actually, that's a big deal and that's a bold decision. But I think I had quite a radical self-belief at that young age. And I actually think that when you're younger, it's sometimes easier to make big, bold decisions and big, bold changes because you've got less things to consider, less things to think about. I didn't have kids then. I didn't have, you can kind of just go for it. And, I had like a naive ambition. So I left home. I was living up north in Leeds and I moved to London and I was just that kind of,
Well, you moved to London at 16?
Yeah.
Yeah, how did you do that? Just on your own, you found a place to live?
Yeah, so I'd auditioned for a performing arts school. So I'd got offered a place there, but everything else, exactly that. You have to find somewhere to live. I needed to work in the evenings and the weekends to pay rent, to then go to college during the day. So it was very much, it was just like I arrived with a little suitcase and that's it. So I did the performing arts school. I actually went into a musical. And so some people don't know this about me, that I was in We Will Rock You in the West End.
Oh,
did you know that?
No,
you see?
I love that.
Yeah, so I was in We Will Rock You, the musical, the Queen musical, Tottenham Court Road, Dominion Theatre. It's iconic. So I did that for a couple of years. And at the time, so I got married then. I got pregnant at the same time. I was very much like, I guess life was going pretty well, in that sense. It was like I was kind of doing my dream job because obviously when you go to performing arts school, you want to be in the West End. And I was newlywed and I was young and I was just, everything was going well. But life is very unpredictable, isn't it? So my husband at the time became very ill very suddenly. So he was a very healthy, fit guy who was training for London Marathon, his PE teacher. He was a very healthy, fit guy. And he essentially one day, we went to bed and he had a spontaneous brain hemorrhage, which essentially caused him to have a seizure. And he just, was having a seizure. And I'd never seen anyone have a seizure before. I was pregnant at the time.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So as you can imagine, I won't go into it too much, but essentially everything kind of changed at that time in my life. I actually walked out of the theatre and said to the cast, "See you tomorrow." And I never went back.
Wow.
I never went back because, things changed after that. So, so he was in a neurology ward for 2 weeks where they tried to figure out what had caused the hemorrhage. And he later developed epilepsy as a result of it. So I guess how did this, as you can imagine, impacted me in a lot of ways. It's not like the next day I just woke up and decided I'm going to learn as much as I can about health and well-being. But at the time, I was definitely searching for answers and I was questioning, I guess we know that the medical system is very, separate. So there's the physical body and it doesn't necessarily consider, it's not a holistic approach, right? So if you go to the hospital with a head injury or a burst blood vessel in your brain, they're not necessarily asking you about trauma or about grief or about stress or about sleep. They're just like, did you bang your head? That's it. So I think at that time, I really started to just look at the whole world essentially around me and go, what is it that's impacting our health? Because you can just be walking down the street, living your life, healthy, young and fit, going to work, and dropped down with a brain hemorrhage. And I didn't understand that you could just accept that there was no cause. That's what they said. There's no cause. So fast forward from there, you know, our son was born, and that was very much like, it was so needed in a sense of like, you know, joy and just something that's just so exciting. But then, again, more change, because I was then a new mum. And we know how much that changes your life. And suddenly, you know, and I was really young. I was so young. Like, my friends weren't even like getting a text back from a guy, and I was having a baby.
Yeah, how old were you?
I was 23.
Yeah.
I was 23. So new mum, that changes everything, because then you're thinking about everything from your physical body changes to breastfeeding to just so many things changed, actually. And I started to think about work. Like, what am I going to do? I've always worked. I've always been, I guess, entrepreneurial, resourceful maybe. So I've always thought, okay, I need to work. And I guess that kind of sent me on that path of like, I started writing, and this was like back in the day. So I started a blog. Remember when people had blogs? So I started a blog, and I did my personal training qualification. I started learning about fitness and health. And I think the first thing I ever did, it was kind of like Joe Wick's story, but I basically went out with 1,000 flyers, created a boot camp for mums, and I put them through doors. Yeah, this is like 14 years ago. I put them through doors with my baby in the pushchair. And I think I had like 22 women turn up to the first ever one.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, out of 1,000. Because you're just putting them through front doors. You don't know who they are. But I had about 22 women turn up, and I did this boot camp. And I just remember thinking, even then, it wasn't about, you know, the physical. It wasn't about the squats or the thing. It was just this energy and this like, I don't know, I realised, I was like, I can motivate people. I know I can encourage people. And when it comes to health and wellness and working out, that's just one piece of the puzzle. And we know that sometimes when people start on that journey, that one change brings more change. So suddenly their confidence begins to change. Suddenly maybe they are thinking more consciously about food choices. Maybe just so many things change. And I think for so many of the women that I was working with then, it showed me, actually, even from a self-belief perspective, people can come on day one as a beginner and say, oh, I could never run. I'm not a runner. I can't run 5K. And then within, you know, a few months of working with me or working with anyone who's, you know, really dedicated, and they just, so much can change for them. And you see these people go on that journey where, fast forward a year or two, they're running marathons, you know, they're doing triathlons. Like, this is incredible. So that really, I guess, was the start of me understanding motivation is incredibly important. What is it that makes some people strive to succeed and others, you know, where others would fail? What are those kind of behavior changes? What are the habits? What are the things, the intangible things that help us to live well and to achieve? So that kind of set me off. Hence, you know, a few years later, from writing the blog, I was working with different brands. This was a really exciting time as well, because if you think about the timeline of like social media, things like Instagram, YouTube. Instagram launched in October 2011. And I often talk, now I work with brands as a brand advisor and consultant, and I often talk about this timeline of inflections for brands. And it was a really exciting time because so many things were changing in the fitness world, from YouTube trainers to, Instagram. It just became like this really exciting, cool time. And I think the timing was really good for me because I was able to, you know, share my ideas. Share my ideas, share my passion. And I was just like going for it. I was saying yes to everything. So it was really cool. And I started working with, some really great brands. I became an Adidas global ambassador for 3 years. That was really cool and led to lots of things. My first kind of like, here's a microphone, you interviewed an athlete. This before podcasting was really a thing. So that was a real help. You know, I just learned so many different skills basically. And then I did start the Power Hour podcast that you mentioned with this idea that ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things. And I remember thinking to myself, I kind of include myself in that. I thought, I'm an ordinary person, not specifically like amazingly talented or gifted, but I thought I can do extraordinary things. And I have, whether that's running my first marathon, writing a book, starting a business. And I wanted to understand how other people have done that as well. So on the Power Hour, I interviewed a whole host of people, like hundreds of people now, athletes, business founders, CEOs, you name it, always trying to understand those behavior habits, those changes, those mindset tools. Like, what are they doing that's making them extraordinary? Because they are ordinary people, all of them. And like all of the most incredible things, think about the most incredible things that have ever been created, from an aeroplane to a bridge to an iPhone. Everything was created by an ordinary person. An ordinary person did that. You know, an ordinary person created that. So Power Hour podcast came along. I think because, the listeners were are really loyal, and so many people were sharing the show, and it was getting a lot of, traction. This is back in 2018. So again, people were like, podcast, that's new.
Like we said, you're an OG now.
I'm an OG. And then, it kind of led to other opportunities like the book deal, the first book, writing a book with Penguin Random House, doing talks for big brands. I think for a while I was like, this is crazy. Like, why would, for example, like a team of leaders at Microsoft or a team of, senior leaders in Uber, like why would those people want me to come in and talk to them about high performance or about energy or about motivation? But the more I did it, the more I realized that these things are universal. And it doesn't matter if you're senior, junior, old, young. I think it's more about certain people. I call them kind of, whether it's high achievers or ambitious, productive people, like it's more of a characteristic and a mindset that you want to, whether it's optimize, your daily routine, whether it's optimize your nutrition and your energy. There's just a lot of people who I think, there's so much information now, and it's empowering to go, I can do that as well. You don't have to be an Olympic athlete with a personal coach. You can learn these things and apply them to your own life. Yeah. So yes, I'll get to the last bit you asked me, which is what led you to decisions? Gosh. So 2020, we can all remember the pandemic. Oh my gosh, the pandemic. So a lot of these talks that I'd been doing for these organizations and their teams, suddenly everything was online, as you know. So it was Zooms. We all had Zoom fatigue. I was homeschooling. That was the only time I've ever homeschooled in my life. And I remember going on to Zooms and doing these talks, and I was talking about goal setting, the science of goal setting, habits, and decision-making. And decision-making was almost just like the last, little bit. It was like I had 2 slides on it, and I talked about decision-making, and I got so many questions, so many emails afterwards, LinkedIn messages. And again, I realized I was like, this is a universal thing, decision-making. We're all making decisions. So why was it standing out to so many different people? So I started thinking about that, reading, looking. And actually, I realised that so much has changed. We know, obviously, so much has changed in the way we work, in the way we live, in the last 50 years, the last 100 years. And it's impacted everything. So decision-making has now become incredibly difficult because we have more choice than ever before. And so that's what, I guess, the seed was planted back in 2020. And I kind of kept it. It was there. I was thinking about it. I realised there really weren't many books about decision-making. Typically, if I looked for them, they were all written by kind of like the same kind of person, like an older man, telling us, these are the frameworks for making good decisions in work and life. And I just really wanted to add to that in a new way for the modern world, for the challenges that we actually face now. So when Penguin Random House came around after the first book and the paperback, and then it got to the conversation around what's the next book, that's where I was like, okay, decision making. Here we go. Yeah. So here we are. So that's the short version of about 20 years of my life.
Amazing. So in the book, Decisions That Matter, you discuss the overwhelming number of choices that we face daily.
Yes.
What inspired you to address this topic, and how do you suggest that individuals actually begin to navigate decision fatigue?
Yeah, so this stat, which sometimes people are like, that cannot be right, it's 35,000 decisions. So that's obviously subconscious, conscious, that we're making every single day. Now, if you think about just the first hour of your day, how many decisions you might have to make. It's right, exactly. So we all know.
I was just shaking my head, by the way, to those who are watching.
So it's overwhelming, and we have an abundance of choice now in every area of our lives, from what to wear, what to eat, what to watch, who to date, where to live. Again, I talked about 50 years ago, so that's 1975. That's 50 years ago, right?
That's crazy.
Exactly. So 1975, 50 years ago, if people were looking for a new job, they might go into work, or they might look at a local newspaper, exactly, or a bulletin board, or you had to know someone who, okay, I know someone, and have a conversation with them. Now, I'm pretty sure this was in 2022. The statistic around millennials was that they can change jobs, or that they change jobs typically every 18 months. Because even when you're in a role, you can look on LinkedIn, you can look on other sites, you can speak to colleagues, you can kind of shop around and constantly think about career progression. Is this the right career for me? Should I move here? Should I move there? And I think essentially we're doing that in every area of our lives. So where there's so much choice, look at dating apps. If you can swipe through hundreds and hundreds of potential partners, of course it's going to be more difficult to feel satisfied with the choice that you have. And it goes across everything. So for people, if you've got 40 pairs of jeans, it's harder to get dressed in the morning than if you have 2. So I think, what can we do with this? You learn, okay, there's 35,000 decisions. It's overwhelming, it's tiring. And I talk a lot about energy. So one thing people can do really is simplification. Where can you simplify decision-making in your life, and in some ways even automate? So there are certain things that you could decide and you could choose, for example, for the week. That could be as simple as prepping breakfast. People that love meal prep, it's done. You're not making that decision in the morning when you might be rushing, you might be tired, you might be hungover, whatever is going on, to think, do I want to have the chia pudding? Do I want to have eggs and protein? Do I want to have the croissant and coffee on the way on the train? You don't have to think about it. You've just made the decision, and you've pre-made the decision at a good time when you made, potentially a better decision, a more effective decision, because you're choosing with your long-term goal in mind rather than the impulse of the moment. So simplification, I often say to people, it might sound quite boring to think about, okay, create these automated decisions. But actually, I'm speaking from experience, and also other people that I know have done this, and it's freeing in so many ways. You're freeing up the mental space, you're freeing up energy for more important things. And in a way as well, you're making decisions that are aligned to your values. Because again, for example, if you value health, you're making that decision ahead of time. Or if you value, for example, a relationship, and you've put in things in place to ensure that you spend quality time with that person, that decision's already made. So you're not having to decide the importance on the daily basis of, have I got time for this today? Have I got time to go and do that workout? Have I got time to reply to that email? Have I got time to, because you've decided. So I think simplification is important. It's easier said than done, but I think there's hopefully within the book tools in there to help people go, okay, what are some processes so I can make less decisions on a daily basis, less of the kind of mundane, low stakes stuff, and save my energy for the more important high stakes decisions.
See, I love that, because actually on a Sunday, I plan my week.
Yeah.
And I input everything from when I'm going to wash my hair. It's like what meals, when I'm spending time with the girls, intentionally what I'm doing. And it helps me align my values with the person that I want to be that week. But those decisions are kind of, as you say, it's not the impulsive decisions every day where you're like, what am I going to do today, or what are we going to do with this time? When am I going to do that? It's kind of already preset. So I kind of totally get, I think it just makes it so much easier, doesn't it?
It really does. And I think for people that struggle with boundaries, or people that struggle with maybe peer pressure, or I think setting rules and boundaries and decisions ahead of time kind of gives you like a pass. So for example, if let's say someone's a vegetarian, that's a decision that they've made. So when you go for dinner with a vegetarian, you don't say to them, oh, come on, try the steak, try the chicken.
So true.
Because you accept it. Like, they've made that decision, they're a vegetarian. So for example, if you're someone who struggles with social drinking, so in January, a lot of people, I think 8 million people in the UK do dry January. And I think only 40% of people complete it. So often people will get to, let's say it's, halfway through January, and they're at a work event, or it's a weekday thing, and someone goes, oh, come on, have a drink. And they're, oh, okay. And so a simple rule, and again, maybe not for January because that's 31 days, but a simple rule might be, I don't drink at work events. That's a rule. It's not a decision in the moment where someone's going to go, oh, come on. People accept rules because they don't fight them. They're like, oh, okay, she doesn't drink at work events, or she's vegetarian, or whatever your rule is. I have one about emails at the weekend. I don't do them. I don't look at them. I don't open them. I also have one about things being in my diary, requests 7 days in advance. If it's not 7 days in advance, it's an automatic no.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I made that decision, honestly, and people will go, well, surely you can't uphold that. But when I made that rule, do you know what's funny about this? When you make that rule, if people know it and you communicate that to others, suddenly they will start requesting things 7 days in advance.
But what if something came up last minute?
So, of course, every rule must be broken. If there was like an exception, I'm talking like, okay, Oprah Winfrey wants you to come on her podcast tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Oprah, I'm there. But most things, I uphold this rule. And there's for a few reasons. One is my own well-being. So I know that if we live in oh my gosh, the modern world, the sense of urgency that people will put onto you, everything's urgent. Everything's urgent. So if someone wants me to do something and it's in 2 days' time, that urgency and that stress is being put onto me, because I might now have to rethink about my schedule, or rethink about picking up the kids, or, childcare, or maybe I don't feel adequately prepared to come and give a talk because you've given me 3 days notice. So now this 7 days rule, it just, honestly, the stress, there's just things that I'm used to put myself into this kind of, trying to be everywhere and say yes. And now I'm like, if it's not 7 days, I am very sorry. Polite decline. It is an instant no. I don't even have to make the decision.
I love that. I'm going to have to start booking in 7 days in advance with you now.
I don't need an excuse to not make plans, so thank you for that. That's another thing.
Yeah.
Just a quick break to talk to you about Happy Mammoth. At Raise, our goal is to help women and mothers to live their best lives, and that's exactly what Happy Mammoth want you to do too.
They are dedicated to helping women take control of their well-being at every stage of their life. Hormones are essential for our overall health and happiness, as they impact everything from our energy levels, sleep, to our mood and our focus. And when they're out of balance, well, life can feel pretty out of balance too. Which is why we're excited to share Happy Mammoth's Hormone Harmony with you.
Hormone Harmony isn't just for women going through menopause, it's for anyone experiencing the effects of hormonal changes. We both take Hormone Harmony as part of our daily supplement go-tos and are so impressed with the ingredients and benefits we feel from taking it. They're packed with adaptogens, which are really powerful herbal extracts that help your body manage stress, and it's designed to naturally restore balance and help you feel like yourself again.
You may have actually seen Hormone Harmony on social media already, because women cannot stop raving about how it has transformed their lives. A bottle of Hormone Harmony is sold every 24 seconds.
So whether you're navigating life's transitions into menopause or just looking for hormonal balance, check out Hormone Harmony from Happy Mammoth, because life's too short to let your hormones hold you back.
For a limited time, you can get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use the code RAISE at checkout.
So it sounds like a simple tool, but it's those kind of things which, some of these might work for me, some of them might work for you. But essentially what I want the readers of the book to do is go, okay, which maybe they could create 3 rules and say, okay, this is going to eliminate some decisions, eliminate if they, as I say, if you're someone who struggles with boundaries, or you're a people pleaser, a recovering
me.
people. Okay, right.
I'm really working on it, and I'm so much better in setting boundaries, but it's something that I've always really struggled with.
Yeah.
I'll always put my needs before, or someone else's needs before.
Yeah, many people do that. And I think, when you really understand and you get into the why of it, I know we kind of throw away these terms of, people pleasing. But for so many of us, we've been taught to be agreeable. We've been taught to say yes. We say yes too quickly and too often. Yeah. And I think for people pleasers, when you really start to unpick and understand, why do you feel the need to be agreeable and to kind of, be the good wife or the good friend or the good colleague? It's that narrative that we've been taught that makes us say, yes, okay, I can do it. I can be there. I can do all those things that you need, even if it's to the detriment of ourselves.
Well, it's interesting because actually, I knew we were having you on. I've been thinking about decisions, and it's kind of like thinking about it in a different way. And this people-pleasing kind of mentality as being the good child and the oldest daughter and, kind of suppressing your needs naturally. But actually, how can we, it's like someone will be like, oh, what do you want for dinner? Or something. I'll be like, oh, I don't mind. It's kind of like
you do
this.
That.
And honestly, it's because most of the time, I don't mind. If you really care or want something, I'll happily go with it. Like, I don't kind of think about it in the same way. But how can someone who's struggling with making decisions for themselves, implement that more
and find that confidence?
That confidence, because it takes a lot of work, and actually I'm so much better at it now. But that's something you really have to think about and be conscious about, because it's so easy to just be like, oh, whatever you want, and just kind of go with
even
the flow.
If you don't want it,
even if you
then
don't.
say
yeah. And again, if I sound like I know what I'm talking about, it's because eldest daughter, firstborn daughters, I'm looking at you. I think so. A real practical, I guess, tangible thing that I had to where I applied this to myself was that I hosted Christmas, and I love hosting Christmas, and I love having people around, and I love to cook and all the rest of it. So I had hosted Christmas, I think, for maybe 12 years in about 12 years in a row. And I feel like, again, as the oldest sibling, when you're the first one to get married and have the house and have the baby, it's like, people come to us for Christmas. And then I think, life, the pandemic, divorce, I'm now remarried, blended family, there's a lot going on. And I remember one year thinking, as much as I look forward to Christmas and everyone comes, it also felt really overwhelming. It felt like there's a whole whole month of tasks that I'm going to end up doing in December, planning this and prepping that. And then it turns into like a 3-day thing. You know, people arrive on Christmas Eve. My house, you feel like it's a hotel, essentially, you know, washing the bed sheets, doing the thing. And I remember thinking, actually, when everyone leaves, they might be like, yeah, we had a great time. And maybe I had a good time, but I'm also exhausted. So I remember last year being like, what would it look like if I didn't host Christmas this year? And that was one of those things where I was like, I felt like, oh no, like the people pleaser in me was like, are you crazy? You know, like this is what you do. Like you host Christmas, everyone loves it, and you'll be kind of like letting them down, like my siblings or whatever. And then I just basically had to like, almost like, so journaling helps. I think like bullet pointing and like writing down, you know, for example, like scenarioing. So scenario planning of like what potentially could happen. So what could you do instead? And, you know, when you then speak to people, I remember speaking to my siblings and being like, oh my gosh. And they were like, okay, all right, you know, okay, that's different. But then after, you know, a week later, they'd all made plans and, you know, my sister was going to Sri Lanka and, you know, my other sibling was going to their other family, and like people just figured it out. And then it actually came to it. And because, as I say, we have a blended family now, we kind of have the kids half the time we don't. And so it actually felt like quite an adult Christmas for like the first time. Like, honestly, I went for dinner with friends, me and my husband, it was a bit boozy, and it was just so different. And again, it's not to say I'll never host Christmas again. You know, this is a real like long story about it. But really, I think sometimes people pleasing, we're in a loop, we're in a cycle, and we're not going to break it unless we're intentional. We have to really sometimes question, okay, what could it look like if I didn't do this? Or when you said, oh, I don't really mind, there's some things that we probably don't mind. But I think there's some things that we do. We just haven't given ourselves time and space to think about it. You know, like if I said to you, what's your dream holiday or your dream weekend? Or people are just like, oh, I don't really know. But if you sit down and think about it, you might be like, actually, it's not going and doing that thing with, you know, that we do. It's actually would look like this. So yeah, giving yourself a time and space to think about it, plucking up the courage to like uphold your boundary and be like, actually, we're adults, we're grown-ups.
And I think we make it a bigger thing than it actually is. And then once you actually start saying, it's like, yeah, if someone told me what they wanted for dinner and didn't go, oh, I don't mind, I wouldn't think anything of that.
You're not going to, no, that's so true.
So it's like you just have to, so it's just interesting.
Even in the book, the way you talk about the WhatsApp group situation with girls. So you say you've got a group of girls and you're all going out for dinner and everyone's like, where do you want to go? What time? What are we going to eat? And you said if you just put the time and the place, if you want to come, let me know. And then it takes the element of decisions out of it. And everyone's probably quite relieved.
Oh, absolutely.
In that situation.
Everybody is relieved. So yeah, exactly that. I hate big group WhatsApp chats. I won't even look at it. I won't even open it. They're unread. I'm not involved because of that. Exactly. People going around the houses. And so exactly that, the kind of point there is leading a group to decisions. You just say, yeah, exactly what you said. This is the time, this is the place. Please let me know. And I'll assume if you don't respond that you can't make it. Hopefully see you next time. Everyone will respond. Everyone will respond because they'll just go, brilliant, see you there, or they'll say, I can't make it. They will let you know and you've got it sorted. And it's just such a, again, time saver. So many people talk about the things they want to do in their lives and they don't have time. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, I wish I could, you know, I could work out more, I could train for a race, I don't have time. I've got kids. Oh, I wish I could do this and that, I don't have time. Oh, I'd love to start X, Y, I don't have time. Being time poor or energy poor is such a drain on so many people, yet they'll spend 20 minutes trying to decide what to watch on TV. Or they'll
tell everybody this, by the way, again from your book about the Netflix thing. You said it's on average it's 10 minutes a day and that's 3 days a year. What the actual, that was crazy.
That's not even watching, that's deciding what to watch. So again, if you think about the time and energy wasted on some of these things, how much better spent could it be rather than, you know, 60 WhatsApp messages to decide where are we going for drinks?
What time?
Wow. So yeah, people will be relieved. They were like, thank you so much for just like stepping in and going, hey, we're doing this, we're going here, see you then.
No, I love that take.
I told you, didn't I?
Yeah, and I was like, so good.
Done.
So today, you know, you were talking about 1975 and obviously life is so different then. Life now is so much more convenient, but we're so much more stressed because of all the decisions that we have to make. Why are we so stressed with all these decisions that we have to make?
Yes, stress. Well, we're stressed because of the overwhelm. And that's not just decision making. I think that's every area. So I mentioned already, you know, again, I talk a lot about brands and marketing, but back in the 80s, there was a marketing book, I should know the title, it's off the top of my head, but it talked about consumer choice. And it basically said, consumers have got so much choice, you have got to make your product stand out on the shelf. This was the 80s. So that was the idea that a consumer would walk into a store and look at 4 toothpastes, and that was consumer, you know, there was a lot of choice. consider what that's like now. So since not just the amount of brands that are available in a store, but you think about online. You can go online now and look at 5,000 rugs in 10 minutes, right? Think about Amazon. This idea that as well, preferences. So it's going to serve you things that you have, maybe it can, the algorithm will assume things that you might like or things that you might like to look for in the future. So the overwhelm of not only having way too many options than we actually want or need, again, leads to this feeling of dissatisfaction. So if I gave you the option between vanilla and chocolate, you might choose vanilla and be happy. But if I gave you the option of 34 different flavors and potentially sprinkles and sauce and this, you just get vanilla and you're like, oh, this is rubbish. Now your choice,
You're not content,
you're not content because there's so many other things. And I think it's right towards the end of the book where I talk about FOBO. Did you see this? So people who at some of my events, they've been like, it's almost been like an audible gasp in the audience when I've explained this. So FOMO, we're familiar with, the fear of missing out. People used to talk about it. FOBO is the fear of a better option, right? It's the fear, and everyone goes, oh my gosh, yeah. Because it's this idea that even once we choose, okay, I'm going to buy this house or I'm going to book this holiday.
But is it the right one?
Is it the right one? Is it? And we're looking left and right. And it's that fear of something better could come along tomorrow because we are constantly marketed to in that way, which is like, there's a new thing, don't miss out, book today, sold out. It's this scarcity of marketeers.
And we compare online as well. So somebody else would go on a holiday and think, well, I could have had that amazing time.
Yeah, you could have gone there. And this idea that, time well spent, you don't want to waste your time. You don't want to make a bad decision. So it's so overwhelming. It's so incredibly stressful. And on top of that, you add the visibility of the way we live now. So the way we live in the modern world, what I mean by visibility is our kind of sharing culture. So whether that means that you've got an Instagram following of thousands or whether it means that you just post, I don't know, on Facebook or whatever it is, there is a feeling now that your life is more visible and that your choices are more visible and that the decisions that you make are more visible. So people feel more stressed to, for example, like announcement culture. So they go on LinkedIn, they announce this thing, I've started this new job, and everyone says, well done, amazing, congrats, you're smashing it. So this like visibility piece, which I think, again, leads into the stress because it's like, what if I change my mind? What if I leave? People are going to see.
Are we doing this to impress other people? Do I want to choose to do something because that's going to be more impressive rather than actually making you happy? Are we making the decisions for other people as well?
Exactly. So there's all this layering, which leads, which I really just think compounds for many people, this almost indecision. So I could talk all day about indecision and how I think people are so stuck and so almost like frozen and paralyzed from choosing anything because of these things that we're discussing. So whether it's, comparison, whether it's FOBO, whether it's what are other people going to think, it's holding so many people back, so many of us back from living our fullest life, from living the most exciting life, being the most, I guess, just enriching life. And that doesn't mean, doing the most, biggest, best thing, but it's the thing that aligns to you. It's the thing that you choose. Because as you just said, if so many people, I think, go through the motions of life and then later in life, sadly, will look back at their decisions, that's when they become aware and they go, oh, actually, I never really chose. I just, that's what my parents said I should do, or that was where my friends were going, or that's what my husband, they never really chose. And I think there's a wonderful book, Daniel Pink, he wrote about the regrets of the dying. Talks about these four kind of categorizes these kind of four regrets. And regrets of inaction, which is what I'm talking about, where people don't make a decision, regrets of inaction are the ones that weigh the heaviest on us in our later years, rather than regrets of mistakes. Wow. So, for example, if you said, okay, we're going to launch a business, and, after a couple of years, you had to close the business, you saw it as a failure. You'd learn something, you'd move on, and you'd say, oh yeah, that was a period of life, we tried and we failed. But that's it, you'd move on. But the inaction, the feeling that says, I wish I had, but I never did. I had that business idea, I never started it, or I never told that person, or I never booked that trip. Those are the indecision. That's the thing that matters the most.
And is that from fear or lack of confidence, do you think? Most, is that what it's down to, or just people being frozen in this kind of like making the right decision?
I think it's a few things depending on the person. I think for a lot of people, it probably is fear. Yeah. So fear of, not knowing enough, how many times do people, I'm going to do this, but they don't know enough yet. So they're going to start their podcast, or they're going to write their proposal, or they're just fear of not knowing enough. And I always say to people, whether it's entrepreneurs, founders, people with ideas, ambitious, productive people, there are people who are less qualified than you who are already doing what you want to be doing. Yeah. And it's not to say, okay, it doesn't matter. Yes, study, research, do the work, do the course, learn. But I think this idea that I don't know enough to start X, you'll never know. There'll always be something new. There'll be new research. There'll be new things. There'll be new products, features, tools, whatever it is. Just get started. You can make it better later.
And you learn through action.
Absolutely.
Right? It's like we'd never hosted a podcast before, and we were kind of like, should we, but then the more you do it, it's just like, of course, and you just grow and evolve
you learn
that
on
way.
the job, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. If I think back to my first ever episode of Power Hour compared to the episodes now, it's probably not, hopefully in 6 years it's changed and it's improved, but the only way I could improve it was by starting and then make it better. Yeah. So for some people, I think it's fear, lack of confidence. I think those things really do play in a lot when it comes to inaction. And I think for others, again, I use this word so often, intentional. I just don't think people are intentional. I think we just often can just go through the motions. Weeks pass, months pass. Like the time will pass whether you do it or don't do it. And suddenly you look back and you go, oh, it's actually been 2 years and I still haven't X. So I think for a lot of people, it's just, not getting around to it. They're just not intentional enough. And I think both of you are very intentional people, in the way that you live your life.
We ummed and ahed about this podcast for a long time, didn't we?
Yeah,
it was in discussion for a while.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, isn't it? It's like, what was holding us back initially?
And again, fear probably was at some point, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's being judged by other people. Like I worry what other people are going to say, and I worry if I'm going to fail. And you're never going to know, are you? And we've had things that have failed in the past, and I don't regret that.
Yeah.
That's the mad thing, isn't it? I don't regret the things that have failed.
Yeah. But I think the reason I say that objectively anyway, I think you're both intentional, is because of the way that you live your life. You don't sleepwalk through life and kind of just go with whatever. You do ask those questions. You have made choices around the way you want to live your own lives. And I think that it's something that I think maybe when you start doing it in one area of your life, don't know if you'd agree, but it gives you the confidence to do it in other areas of your life, because you go, actually, if I can create my own rules around this, then actually I can create my own rules around everything in my life. And that is incredibly exciting, incredibly empowering when you suddenly go, I don't have to follow the status quo or the ladder or the rules or the steps. I can create my own way of living. I think that's really exciting for a lot of people, especially in the modern world. Yeah, because there's so much opportunity. There's so much opportunity. There's nothing and no one that can tell you what is possible for yourself and for your life. Except for you. No one.
Yeah, I think even with home education, as soon as I started that journey, it then opened the door for me to then look at the whole system and say, well, I don't have to listen to those rules or follow those guidelines or that way of life. I don't have to listen to any of it. I can make choices throughout my whole life. So that's a really good point. It's that intentional way of living, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think some people are maybe potentially, you talked about fear, maybe afraid to take responsibility. Because it's like ultimately that responsibility lies with you. And especially when it comes to making decisions for your kids or, I felt that as well as a parent throughout my life. I mentioned that, just before the pandemic, actually, I, got divorced, not got divorced because it doesn't happen in one day, but like the divorce, I guess, process started, however you would describe that. And that, of course, was a very intentional decision. Nobody wakes up one day and goes, I want to get divorced. And especially when you have kids. So I think, that was an incredibly, it's a difficult decision. It's not something that you make overnight. And you're already thinking about, okay, who else does my decision impact? The kids, the people. It's so complex. But the reason I bring it up is because, you said then around the rules and, understanding how you want to live in your own terms. And I think it was really helpful for me at that time to think about, okay, I'm thinking about the now, the immediate, this is going to be really difficult. It's going to upset people. Maybe it's going to be really challenging for my son. This is just felt like a decision that I couldn't make. I'm going to put it off. But then as soon as I was fast forwarding thinking about, okay, future self, so 10 years time, 20 years time, 30 years time, really thinking about that future self and trying to understand, how will this decision impact the me that's going to be, in 10 or 20 years time. And really placing myself at the center and almost again trying to like visualize it, think about the scenario of what that would look like, that made the decision easier.
Okay.
Yeah, it made the decision easier. It made me go, it was that ability to take responsibility for my own choice. And I had to be responsible. I had to know as well. It's really hard, again, looking back, when you know, if you're the instigator of a big change like that, it's almost like it has to be the right thing. You know, this idea when people say, how do you know if a decision is right or wrong? You have to almost tell yourself it has to be right. It has to be right. Because if you've made the wrong decision, that's on you. And I think that's where, again, whether it's choosing to homeschool your children, whether it's choosing to move to another country, whether it's choosing to, adopt a certain diet or lifestyle, I think some people are just afraid because if someone else makes the decision for you and it goes wrong, you can blame them. But if you make the decision and you take responsibility for it and it doesn't go well, that's on you.
Yeah.
So, but we've all got to essentially, own our decisions and our lives because it is yours to live. Ultimately, whether it's your parents, your friends, your kids, everyone, your life is still yours to live. And you have to start to take responsibility for your decisions.
This year, let's say no to microplastics, no to toxins, and yes to clean, healthy hydration, because water matters more than you think.
We're made up of 60% water, so what we drink literally makes us who we are. Enter Win-Win Water, the game changer in pure toxin-free hydration.
Most tap water is full of chemicals, fluoride, metals, hormone disruptors, and even medications. And unfortunately, most bottled water is made from fossil fuel-based plastic, which can leach nanoplastics into the water we drink.
That's where Win-Win Water comes in. Not only are all their bottles 100% plant-based, made from sustainable sugarcane, but their water is locally sourced mineral water that is naturally high in electrolytes and minerals. No need to add anything in, it's just as nature intended, real, live water.
So we're huge advocates for the UK-based water company Win-Win Water. For us, it really is the starting point for health. If you're drinking the best quality water with no toxins, your body will thank you for it. And in this case, the environment will thank you too.
Win-Win Water are currently offering 10% off subscriptions with the code RAISE, so that you can get the best quality water delivered for you and your family directly to your door.
Visit winwinwater.co.uk to find out more.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of in the book where you talk about the high stakes and low stakes decisions.
Yeah.
That obviously the high stakes decisions are the kind of the big turning point decisions in your life. And then you also have the low stakes decisions that also can add up and have a cumulative effect on your life. And I think both are just as important. So I'd love for you to describe to the listeners a little bit more about that analogy.
Sure. So the high stakes stuff, as you said, they are much more infrequent decisions. So maybe something like getting a divorce or getting married or starting a business. But often we approach decisions as though they are irreversible. And I think that, again, when you talk about what holds people back, is they think every decision, they have to stick with it forever. But actually, there are very, very, very few decisions that are irreversible. Most decisions, you can reverse them, even if you wouldn't want to, and even if it would be a lot of admin or a lot of stress, most decisions are reversible. So even the high stakes stuff. But it's important to consider that high stakes decisions do have consequences. They will potentially impact others, and they deserve the time and effort and energy for you to really sit down and to pay attention to those and to make them. So to not have the indecision and to let things go on and on and on. But the low stakes stuff, so as you said, these are the kind of, mundane things that we choose every day. And in the moment, that one decision doesn't have big consequence. But the low stakes ones, we make those decisions frequently. So every day, every week, every month, every year. And over time, that frequency, it accumulates just like, compound interest for anyone who's, investing. You'll know that those 1% make a big difference. So again, I know we've talked about food a little bit, but a really silly example. I was speaking to somebody once, I was at an event and she said to me, I know you've got this new book about decision making. She said, I've listened to you talk about habits and stuff before. And she said, recently I've got into this bad habit. She said, on my way to work, I go into the coffee place. She said, and they've got these really delicious like cinnamon swirl things. And she was like, and I know that, it's high in sugar. It's probably not good in the morning. She said, but I used to just have one. And then now I've started having it every day with my coffee. I just get this thing every morning. And she said, I'm kind of like, I don't know, it's just like a nice treat for myself. It's like a self-care moment. I really like it. And then I was like, okay. But I knew because she was asking me that she was kind of thinking, this is not a good habit. So then she said to me, how do you change it? How do you break a good habit, break a bad habit? And I said to her, okay, first of all, having that one cinnamon thing, whether it's, whatever you want to call it, let's say a cinnamon pastry, having it once, no big deal. Is it going to destroy your health? No way. Having it every day, 5 days a week, add it up. And I kind of like gave her like this visual. I said to her, like, imagine like 250 of them on a table. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's what you're going to consume. Probably more, actually. If you think about 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year, I said you're going to imagine the mountain of 250 and she was like, oh my gosh. You're straight away thinking like, that is going to be so bad and so detrimental for my health that you wouldn't do it. So I think sometimes if you're a visual person, like looking at that little dot, but zooming out and seeing like this huge, mountain of them, for better or for worse, that could be, someone like me, I'm on the go, my energy's up, up, up. I know that I have to be intentional about down regulation. So that might be meditation, breath work. I'm not doing 2 hours a day, but if I do 5 minutes, sometimes maybe 10 minutes, let's say I do 20 minutes a day of breath work or mindfulness. And it's a challenge, trust me. It's not something that I naturally go, oh, I really want to sit down and meditate. I'm like, no. But 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, every single day, over a year, that is going to have a huge impact on my nervous system. It's going to have an impact on my gut health. It's going to impact probably my relationships, the way I respond to the kids or to my partner. So it's the small decisions add up and they really matter when you times them by 1,000.
Yeah. And I think actually slowing down and like meditating and stuff, actually that's when you find clarity on what decisions you should be making. And I think actually in this society, we're so distracted and so busy and there's so much noise all the time. And we're full of constantly rushing to the next thing that actually if you're lost in the kind of day to day and you're not having any quiet time to sit with your thoughts and kind of think about where you're headed or what you're doing or what decisions you even want to make, I guess that's something that we're struggling with, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, the word distraction, who isn't distracted now? We can be distracted by so many things, but mostly by our phones, because I think for most of us, again, I love a stat, something like, I think for any hours of the day that basically we're awake, our phones are within 1 meter of our bodies. 1 meter. Because wherever we are, whether we're, on working at our desk, whether we're in the kitchen cooking, whether we're on the treadmill, your phone is within 1 meter of your body. That is there to give you distractions, right? Whether it's alerts, you can quickly look at emails, you can scroll, you get a WhatsApp. Even the fact that I've got so many apps on there from like a wellness tracking perspective, even that can be a distraction because I'm like, okay, I'm going to open my Aura stats. How did I sleep? Or I'm going to open, whichever other app that I might be using and look at different stats. So there's so much distraction all the time. And I think if you're not aware of it, as you said, you can just constantly, your mind is essentially going from one task to the next, someone else's request, someone else's thing, and it's frenetic, And I think we can probably all relate to that feeling of feeling frenetic, like you're just jumping from one thing to the other. So I definitely think the distraction piece is holding so many people back from that clarity of actually, what do I want? So I think a couple of things there. One is, again, being intentional about your schedule. So many people will say that, but they don't have control of their schedule. That's crazy to me. It doesn't matter what your job is, how old your kids are, and I know I might get pushed back for that, but ultimately, if you don't take control of your schedule, if you don't decide, there's a decision, if you don't choose, your schedule will be dictated to, and someone else will choose for you. Every minute of the day that you are awake, somebody else will tell you and will order your time if you do not reclaim it. If you do not say, in this hour I'm doing this and in this hour I'm doing that. So that's the first thing. And I add white space. So white space I talked about actually in the Power Hour book. It kind of seems a little bit maybe paradoxical because it's about doing nothing. It's intentionally, I have white space in my diary where it might be, okay, Thursday at 2, there's white space. Nothing can go in there. Nothing, no call, no emails, no work, no nothing. And then when it gets to it, you can actually go, what do I need? What do I want? What do I actually want to do right now? Do I want to just lay on the couch and stare at the ceiling for 20 minutes? Do I want to go out for a walk, go out for a run? What do you want to do? And it's not to just be filled with a task like, oh, I'll just quickly, I don't know, load the dishwasher or do some emails. It's like white space where you just think or you just breathe or you just nothing. It's not even like, meditation sometimes can seem quite overwhelming. I've got to meditate. I've got to think. Sometimes my meditation is nothing. Because I'm always thinking, I'm always doing, I've got ideas, I talk a lot, and I just go, white space.
It's like a daily check-in or like a weekly check-in with yourself.
Solitude.
It's a bit like we had this discussion yesterday, and I was saying that when I'm so busy, I feel like my creativity gets stumped.
Yeah.
And so if I don't find that time, even sometimes I find my best ideas come to me in the shower because I have no distractions.
Yep.
My kids can't get to me there. I don't have my phone. And it's like, why is that? So if we allowed ourselves to have more of that white space or, stand in the shower for longer, then the creativity can flourish. But I think in general, finding that time is, even though it almost seems luxurious and not essential, I think it really is.
Oh, it's really essential. I mean, we used to have it because that's it, right? We used to sit, whether it was like queuing up in a store or
and being bored.
We
don't sit. Everyone's on their phones now. You wouldn't even sit and wait for a train or a taxi without looking at you, or your friend's 5 minutes late. You don't just sit. Yeah. You pick up your phone.
Yeah. Have you ever had it where your phone's died? And so your phone's dead and you're on the train?
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, right. And you're like, oh, guess I'm just looking out the window.
No, but I actually quite like that. I actually let my phone, and I think it is because of this. And my husband's
No,
like,
it's not why, Nat.
No, but my husband will be like, charge it. And I'm like, no, but I don't mind, because I actually don't mind when it runs out of battery, because it's really peaceful.
Freedom.
I don't need it. It's like actually detaching myself from that is so freeing.
It's quite freeing because people can't, like you said, access you. So for a lot of people, isn't it weird? Isn't it? Think about the words that we use. Even so boundaries. It's not so much about blocking people out, but often I feel like when people say things like, this kind of like people can't access me, or they can't, we feel like we're reachable and we're contactable, and everyone's demands are just there, like right there. And that could be your kids, or it could be your boss, or it could be someone. And I think it's so interesting, isn't it? Because again, the proximity of the phone being in your you're just really, it's right there. And I think that pressure piece, it feels like everything is right there. So I think it is quite freeing, exactly that. If you go, okay, my phone's dead, no one can expect me. But again, we shouldn't have to wait for that. So with the white space thing, or with the power hour, or with whatever you want to do, I think people, it's often quite extreme. So people will say, I'm doing a digital detox. I'm going to go to this place where you don't use your phone for 2 weeks or a week or something. Whereas actually we could do it every day for an hour. We could say, okay, and I'm quite strict about it with certain things, like with the kids, because now that I have a blended family, obviously I'm not with my son or the kids every day. So the days that I want to be there and I want to be with him. And if I'm on the sideline, which I am often, of different sports pitches in the freezing cold, shivering away, I want to be watching. I don't want to go, quickly just reply to this WhatsApp or this email, and I just miss the moment or the goal or the swimming when they look up and they wave over, and like all the kids, all the parents are just like looking at their phones. And I'm not, again, it's so hard, isn't it, to say anything about parenting. I'm certainly not a perfect parent, but I think, there's a few small changes around, leaving my phone in the car. I literally leave it in the glove box, lock the car, it's fine. And I go on the sideline, and for a minute you kind of go to like check your phone.
You feel like you've lost something.
Yeah, or you just the habit, because we use it so often. I'll go to look at the time, or I'll go to look at WhatsApp or something, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's in the car. And I just don't. And every time I do that, I think, great, because that's one little habit, one little thing where I would have looked at it. You never know what's going to come up. You might get sucked into something, but it's funny, even that observation of my own behaviour, that I go to check it, even though I know it's not there. So we can kind of set these things, whether it's an hour of white space, first hour of your day maybe, last hour of the day for some people, leave your phone in another room, put it on airplane mode. I love that. Like sit on the train, or,
look out the window.
Yeah. Buy a magazine. I still love buying magazines. I read magazines, and obviously I know now loads of the pages are just ads, but I love just looking at a magazine.
It's like something about a book, isn't there? Like actually a
physical book rather than a digital. Adrienne, we would love to know, a little bit more about your daily habits and routines.
Yeah. Okay. So I start from the morning.
Yes, please.
So
we love a morning routine.
I am an early riser. I'm not going to lie. People are like, oh, here we go.
What time do you wake up?
So it's like 5:45. So it's not crazy, but
that is to some.
Yeah. I think, okay, well, about 5:45, and it's not a rush. It's not like 5:45, I've got to jump out of bed and like get out the door. It's not like that. It's a bit slower now. It used to be. I used to really kind of get up, and I'd have like my trainers by the door. I'd have my stuff, and I'd just grab my headphones and just sneak out. And I'd want to get out, for example, if I was training for a race. I went through a period of time doing a lot of endurance races. So half marathons. And again, because of the time commitment, I was just like, if I've got to do 15K, I've got to get out and do it before school run. So it did used to feel a bit more rushed. I'd just be up and out. Now it's slower. So I'm still in that habit of waking up, but it might be a bit slower. So I might spend 10 minutes literally doing nothing. I sometimes just think. I'm thinking about what I'm doing today. I think about, it sounds so silly, but I'll be like, oh, what am I going to wear? Where's that bag? Like, I just lay there and just think. Then I get up and the first, like, I guess after that point, it's like half an hour of solitude. As much as I can, I try to just be by myself.
So you won't be on your phone. Do you sleep with your phone outside the room?
So the phone is usually plugged in, either in the kitchen, in the hall. We don't have any tech in our bedroom, like, at all. And I have blackout blinds. I have a whole thing around, like, sleep. So even that, I'm like, make your room as dark as you can. I try to make it as cool as possible so the radiator is always off. And so get out of a dark room. You will sleep so much better and so much, like, even regardless when people talk about whether a good sleeper or not, the darker your room is, the better. You shouldn't have, like, little flashing lights, things that are lighting up, and especially for kids as well. People are like, oh, they have a night light or a thing. It's disrupting the quality and the depth of your sleep by having a light in the room.
Honestly, if I'm in a hotel room, I actually take, because I take mouth tape. Yeah. So I end up going around the room and sticking mouth tape over, like, the TV
the red
lights. It wakes me up otherwise. Our room, again, is pitch black.
Yeah, so you make it as dark as you can. So I'm up, solitude. So that could be, like, I might grab a book, I might go journal, I might stretch, I might put on headphones, listen to a podcast, listen to music, I might go for a walk, I might go for a run, but it's always about, like, just having time on my own before the kids, before my husband, before work, before anything, just by myself. And because the rest of my day, and I'm naturally an extroverted person, I'm naturally drawn to the conversation or the busyness. So I wouldn't have solitude ever if I didn't do that in the morning.
And you need that.
Yeah. But then it's like, typically if the kids are there, it's school things. So it's, getting everyone ready, getting everyone to school, doing all that. And then when I get back is typically when I eat breakfast. So, so it's not like a huge fast. It's not like a, don't eat before midday kind of situation. But I'm genuinely, I'm not hungry when I first wake up. But I also know that for female hormone health, and, I'm going to be 38 soon, I'm like, it's probably not great to go past the window of, like, 14 hours, 16 hours, 18 hours, some would suggest. So therefore, I try to, like, have something in the morning. It's always protein. It's always savoury. I am the savoury breakfast club. I feel like that's been one of the biggest changes to my, I guess, overall daily routine in the last probably about a year and a half, 2 years. When I switched to having a savoury breakfast with protein, with fats, with olive oil, it's literally changed so many things.
What do you have?
Yeah, I was just about to say, I love hearing what people eat.
Oh my gosh. So it's always got eggs. So often it's like not poached, boiled. 2 boiled eggs or 2 fried eggs. It's always eggs. I often have fish in the morning. And this is the bit, everyone's always like, okay, eggs and fish, but this is the bit where people are like, what? I have roasted vegetables, and I love roasted vegetables in the morning. So sometimes I'll do them in the morning, sometimes I've done them the day before. Sweet potato, carrots, broccoli, that kind of thing. Eggs and fish.
What fish?
Salmon.
Oh, okay.
Olive oil, salt. Oh my gosh. So firstly, it's delicious.
Making my mouth
Is it kind of like a...
No, I'm going to show you a picture in a minute.
Okay.
So firstly, it's delicious. So you're like, this feels really nourishing. It feels really delicious. Secondly, I've just, again, when you self-experimentation, when I realised, like, the energy that I would have throughout the day, the consistency of my energy, not having the kind of up and down, not having the kind of post 2 o'clock fatigue, the slump, I just feel like it's just a game changer. A game changer. And if you've ever worn a CGM, have you worn CGM?
The things
on your arm?
Yeah.
So a continuous glucose monitor, for anyone who hasn't, you can really see in real time the effect of your glucose going up and down. And now, again, a lot of people are like, why does it matter if our glucose goes up and down? It's a natural bodily function. Yes, it is, unless you have diabetes or pre-diabetes. However, the glucose going up and down isn't so much it's not just about the foods that you eat. It can be around stress, exercise, sleep. All of these things can impact your glucose sensitivity and how quickly the glucose comes back down, or whether it drops below kind of the range that you want to be in and makes you feel fatigued. So when I was wearing a CGM, probably about 4 weeks, 6 weeks, quite a long time, I really started to notice the trends around my cycle. So I'd look and see, okay, as we know, week 1 and week 2, everything's good, everything's stable, including my mental health. and then weeks 3 and weeks 4, it's like, what is going on? So week 4, blood glucose is going up and down all over the place. Even when I was asleep, I'd just be asleep and I'd see in the morning that my glucose is going up and down whilst I was asleep. Hence, you don't always wake up feeling rested in week 4. So looking at that, and then looking at, okay, let's have a day where I don't have breakfast, I rush out maybe, come back, maybe I'm going straight into town and I just get on the train, just grab a banana. the rest of the day, my glucose is up and down and all over the place. But if I've had that savoury breakfast with fats and proteins, we hear it so often and we go, oh yeah, protein, fats, whatever. Throughout the rest of the day, I could eat the exact same lunch, the exact same dinner, have the coffee, have the thing, and my glucose levels are stable.
But isn't it mad then that it's encouraged that children have cereal?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And it's literally raising their blood sugar from the moment they
Straight
wake up. But there's
away.
been studies that say that their concentration levels throughout the school day, if they're given protein for breakfast, are totally different and they're able to sit and concentrate.
Yeah, it makes
So it's
complete
yeah.
sense. It makes complete sense. It's like giving them biscuits. Essentially, cereal is like got the same nutritional value as biscuits. Not many people would be happy to send their kids off to school with a couple of jammy Dodgers. But the cereal thing is wild. So if you can, obviously, if you're doing it for yourself, then protein for the kids in the morning, great. Also, hydration. So I know that the hydration market is obviously booming. Everyone's talking about hydration, salts and drinks. But again, with kids, I've really started to notice it in my son at the moment. By the end of the school day, sometimes he literally looks like he's almost like looks fatigued, and obviously he's going through puberty, so he's probably got more, hormones, he's tired. He's dehydrated. And I noticed, because I said to him the other day, he takes, a water bottle to school in the morning. He's probably drank all the water by midday. He might do PE, he might have football, like he doesn't always go and refill it. And he comes out like this like wilted flower, and I'm like, right, have a drink, like rehydrate. And I noticed within half an hour, like you said, it's like, completely different. So it's little things as well around concentration and fatigue. How can you sit in a lesson at 2 PM if you're dehydrated, if you've had sugar in the morning, up and down, and expect kids to concentrate is crazy. So I'm on it at the moment with him. I'm like, refill your water bottle, stay hydrated. He's probably like, okay, mom. But protein in the morning as well for the kids.
Nice.
Yeah.
Can we haven't kind of gone through, I guess, your decision tool making kit and what the key takeaways are from your book.
Yes.
So can you just run through what your best top tips are for making
absolutely.
decisions?
We've talked about so many things. So really, really grateful that you've both read the book, listened to the book, and invited me today. I really hope it helps.
So nice.
Yeah, I hope it helps some of the listeners to just plant some seeds for them to think about, okay, am I being intentional about the decisions that I'm making? Am I going through the motions? Am I overwhelmed and therefore not choosing anything at all? So I would say I break down the book into chapters around values, joy, success, and impact. And at the end, there's a grid that's kind of like a decision-making matrix, I call it. And I'm someone who's very data-driven. I always like to kind of, score things. And I think a pros and cons list doesn't cut it. It doesn't take into consideration all of the variables, all of the different things we need to consider. So this matrix allows you to essentially score things and say, okay, how much does this decision align with my personal values? How much will this decision bring me joy? How much will I enjoy doing this job? Or how much will I enjoy going to that place? Next one's success. And this is why there's a whole chapter on it, because success, of course, it's like, how are we defining success at this moment in your life? The way I define success for me now is very different to a decade ago.
Yeah.
So then I score, how much does this align with my current version of success? And then impact. So from 1 to 5, how much would this decision allow me to create the impact that I want to have, or how much would this impact others? And you can score it. So when you get to the end, you might have a score, obviously the highest score that you could get, 4 5s is 20. The lowest would be a 0. I have a rule here. If anything scores a 0, it is an instant no. No, and it sounds silly, but you might go, okay, values, and then joy a little bit, and then success, and then impact 0. It's like, if it's a 0, just rule it out. But also the reason I like this grid is because often it gives people a really tangible and clear result and an answer. So for example, let's say they're weighing up like 2 job opportunities. They come out and they're like, oh my gosh, that one actually got a 12 and that scored a 4. And you can really see that based on your own criteria, you've made the decision.
Yeah.
And even if, let's be honest, none of us know what's going to happen in the future, uncertainty is a part of life, regrets, mistakes, all these things we've discussed, we can't eliminate those. There's no perfect decision-making tool or grid or framework that says this will be 100% the right decision. It doesn't exist. But when we use these kind of tools, when we question, when we're intentional about decision making, we feel more satisfied with what we've chosen. And even if in the future it doesn't work out how we thought, it doesn't go to plan, we'll still know that we made the decision ourselves, and that we kind of weighed up everything with the information that we had. We made the choice.
Yeah.
It wasn't made for us. It wasn't just left up to, well, whatever happens on the day. We made the choice. And I think that in itself gives people confidence, because they're like, oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to go for it.
I love that. So true. And we always ask all of our listeners, what their favourite book would be, or what's had the biggest impact on their lives? What would yours be? Apart from yours, obviously.
So
much pressure, I know.
Well, no, but there's just so many because I'm an avid book reader and listener. Like, honestly, I listen to probably like a book a week.
You can say more than one if you want.
Yeah?
If there's any that stand out.
Okay, so I think from a business perspective, and even though it's an incredibly old book, Tim Ferriss' 4-Hour Work Week. Have you either of you read or listened to this
I've heard
book?
of it.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you because you're going to listen to this book and be like, even though I think it's 22 years, it's crazy. And I listened to that book on Audible probably 15 years ago, maybe less. Anyway, there's so many things in that book that I think still impact me, the decisions that I make in my life, choices that I've made in the past. It's just, if you're an entrepreneurial, productive, ambitious person, you will get so much from that book. So that's one.
Amazing. I love that.
Yeah. So that's
my
one.
husband's doing a thing at the moment where he's trying to read a book a month and he doesn't know what he's going to have next month. So I'm going to get him that book.
Yeah, there you go. Tim Ferriss' 4-Hour Work Week. So that's the kind of non-fiction book world, professional one done. If I could give you another one. Actually, I don't read fiction, so there's not going to be a fiction offer ever.
I don't
ever. I don't know how people do it.
Unless you're getting value from it.
Exactly. But that could probably be part of the white space that we probably all should read. Yeah.
For me, I don't know. I'm not a fiction reader, but I'd say a second one. If I could give you another one, gosh, so many. So, A Well-Lived Life was written by Dr. Gladys I should know her name. She is a doctor who I'm pretty sure she's been a doctor for over 6 decades. She's 102 years old. She might be 103 now. Yeah. She was 102 when I interviewed her. And obviously, in prep for an interview with her, I'd read her book and I just felt like, I don't know, there's just a different level of respect and wisdom to someone who is, imagine 100 years, what she's lived through. And her energy and her kind of attitude to life and her vibrancy. We did this interview on Zoom and she was like, isn't this incredible? She was like, we're in a different country and she's 102 and she's still learning new things. And her book, just something about the energy of that book is something I've read it once, I'm probably going to read it again. And I felt like it was kind of, knowledge from someone who was just older, wiser, and had just a beautiful energy. And I thought, gosh, if I could age and still have that vitality and approach to life and that open-mindedness to talk and learn about new technologies and new everything and not be closed-minded to anything, that's something I hope for myself. So that's a good one.
Oh,
thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
I absolutely love this conversation. Honestly, I almost wish we had a lot longer with you because I'd love to pick your brains. You're so inspiring and motivating. So
I feel like there's a lot of takeaways from this.
Yes.
So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.